Welcome to The Lines NFL 2024 season preview, team-by-team analysis. Matt Brown, Stephen Andress coming to you. Going to give you our thoughts on each and every NFL team as we head into the 2024 season. We will talk about Super Bowl odds, division odds, talk about whether any of these guys are MVP candidates. What do we think about them from a win total standpoint? Anything you can do here, Stephen, and that is what we are looking forward to breaking down here, each and every NFL team. And I'll tell you what, this is the time of year for us, right? This is the time of year for us to dig in. This is the dog days of summer, as they call them, but not necessarily for NFL geeks. And I'm geeking out already.
And I can't wait to talk about this first team. I chose this team really on purpose because we have already had intense debates between myself and a couple of the freelancers on our staff. The New York Jets. Let's just say that if the Jets do well, I'm going to have some new bottles of bourbon. And if they don't, then one of our freelancers, Evan Scrimshaw, is going to get some bourbon off of me. We like to do some bourbon bets every once in a while. But this, to me, already appears like it's going to be a polarizing team. But there's a lot here, Matt, that has me interested, and I'm afraid of it because it is the Jets after all.
Absolutely. 7-10 a year ago with one of the worst quarterbacking situations in the NFL. If you look over at TheLines.com and you go up to the odds tab and click on the NFL, you will see we will compare each and every one of the books out there so you can make sure you're getting the best number. If you want to bet the Jets to win the Super Bowl, the best one you can find out there currently, 22-1 for them to win the Super Bowl. If you think that, hey, man, I just want to get after this team to win, let's say, just the AFC. Well, if you scroll down, you can see the Jets coming in 12-1 is the very best one that you are going to find out there for them to win the AFC. And then if you want to check out what they can do from the East standpoint, you're going to find, looks like the best number out there is about 210-ish or something like that for them. So be sure, compare odds. As always, we want to make sure that you are getting the best odds out there for each and every one of these teams. 9.5 is our win total. Robert Saleh returns. We know Nathaniel Hackett returns. So this is a lot of the same, except for the fact, Stephen, we do get Aaron Rodgers back after getting a handful of snaps last year. 40-year-old, we're coming off of Achilles. I think that is the pain point that you're talking about, right? Like the big time debate here with this squad is whether or not Aaron Rodgers is going to be Aaron Rodgers or not. And honestly, I think that's a fair discussion to have. And it probably is the crux of everybody's argument because the talent is there on the roster. But if you are of the mindset that Aaron Rodgers is 40 coming off of a major injury and he's not going to get it done, then yeah, you are certainly going to be bearish on this team. And if you think that Aaron Rodgers is going to be able to be at least 90% of what we know of Aaron Rodgers, then this team should be pretty good.
Right. I mean, if you look at his season-long projection, only 3,650 yards is the over-under. So even the market is kind of like playing halfway in between here, in my opinion, because if he's healthy for the full season, I mean, in this day and age, it's kind of hard not to get to 4,000 yards if you're at least an average or slightly above average quarterback. So I think there is some trepidation here in wondering if he's going to be healthy for the full season. But Matt, if we look at this schedule, my God, does it set up well for the New York Jets. Let's first start with the fact that teams in the AFC East will play, obviously, their division opponents twice, but this year they get the NFC West and the AFC South. The crossover games for the Jets via the third place schedule from a year ago. They get the Broncos, the Vikings, and the Steelers. Meanwhile, the Bills, who won the division last year, get the Chiefs, the Lions, and the Ravens. I mean, that is the advantage every year right now in the current scheduling format that helps teams go from third place or fourth place in the division to maybe competing the following year. On top of that, if we kind of break it down, we already have spreads right now for most every game on the schedule. And I've never quite seen anything so stark as the Jets' projections here for each game compared to what I think is a very conservative win total. So if we go game by game right now, the Jets are projected to have 5 toss-up games on their schedule, games where they are less than 3-point underdog to less than 3-point favorites, kind of that range there, underneath the key number of 3 both ways. But they are projected to likely win 11 games this year. 11 of their 17 games, the Jets right now are 3-point favorites or better. And only one game all season are they likely to lose. Week 1, where they're about a 5.5-point favorite at San Francisco. They're only underdogs in 3 games all year, the others being Week 14 at Miami, Week 17 at Buffalo. Usually, Matt, when we've seen situations like this in the past, we're looking at one of the highest win totals in the league on the board. Maybe 11.5. The Jets are 9.5, a lot of juice, minus 150. There's been a ton of action on that already this offseason. I bet it in April, shared it in our free Discord when you could get around even money, minus 105, way back in April. But still, despite that, you can still get plus money on over 10 wins for the New York Jets. So, and after that, they should get off to a good start, because after that first game against the Niners, the quarterbacks they face, Will Levis, Jacoby Brissett, Bo Nix, and either Sam Darnold or J.J. McCarthy. That's their schedule through Week 5. So it's almost like the NFL is begging the Jets to get off to a good start here, Matt. And if Rodgers is healthy, we'll get into the team and the talent and what they have on the roster here. But, I mean, I think the only way you're betting under on a Jets win total is if you just completely disagree with the market rating on this team going into the season, which is around number 11 in the league if you go by, rankings of the Super Bowl futures. So I have to be bullish based on this price right now with the win total.
Yeah, let's break down the team. A little premature on the schedule breakdown there, as we were going to try to set up the team first before we head to that. But hey, Stephen,
that's the first one. I'm getting. I'm excited. I'm getting used to the order of operations here.
Little excited. So obviously, Aaron Rodgers back for this Jets team. They traded for Hassan Reddick. They traded for offensive lineman Morgan Moses. In the draft, they with their first round pick took an offensive lineman as well. So you can see an investment in Aaron Rodgers. They had a third-round pick. They took Malachi Corley, a wide receiver who apparently, if you listen to the beat writers, has looked good so far in camp. An interesting pick with their fifth-round pick and taking Jordan Travis, the quarterback from Florida State. So maybe looking towards the future there whenever Aaron Rodgers is done in free agency. Mike Williams coming over at the wide receiver position. Don't know if he'll be ready from day one, but certainly will be there early on in the season. Offensive lineman Tyron Smith. So again, the theme here, Aaron Rodgers, offensive lineman, wide receivers, et cetera, et cetera. Tyrod Taylor comes in to back up Aaron Rodgers, so you get a nice backup. You get a nice experienced backup in this. Another offensive lineman for depth in John Simpson, and then you get some defensive linemen in Lakey Fotu and Javon Kinlaw as well come in for this team. So they invested on a team that was already pretty good from a roster standpoint. They still invested in the offseason and free agency, and of course in the draft. They kind of let you know, hey, Aaron, we got you a first-round offensive lineman. We got you with our very next pick. We got you a wide receiver. We are buying into you, buddy. Like, this is you. This is your team. This is what we're doing here. So from a roster construction standpoint, it's really pretty obvious, right? The defense was already really good. They needed an offensive line. They went out, invested in the offensive line for Aaron Rodgers, bring in a wide receiver, draft a wide receiver to go along with a good wide receiver they already have. It is pretty hard to argue the roster and the talent on the roster.
Yeah, 100%. And, yes, Rodgers is coming off Achilles at 40 years old, but in my opinion, I don't require Rodgers to be MVP level for this team to maybe do some big things in the regular season and rack up a ton of wins. Now, I don't know about playoff outcomes. We'll get to that in a minute here, but let's just remember the Chiefs won the Super Bowl last year with an elite defense and an offense that, yes, they have Patrick Mahomes, but for the season, they were not a top 10 offense by EPA and success rate. So can we get kind of a similar situation here with the Jets and Aaron Rodgers where maybe they're the number 11, number 12 offense instead of dead last what they were last year and still have that elite defense? To me, it's all about the offensive line, Matt. I mean, they go on, at least on paper, from a bottom 4 unit a year ago by blocking win rates to now the number 5 and number 6 offensive line. If you look at some of the preseason rankings that are out there, mostly because of Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses, huge upgrades at tackle here. Both were top 10 last year, but both are 33 years old. So they got to stay healthy. That's really what this comes down to for me, Matt. If this offensive line is as good as advertised, then this is going to be a really good team that racks up a lot of wins, but it may just take a little bit of time. We've seen this in the past with teams like the Bengals who put together a brand new offensive line, and it didn't quite happen right away.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I am a little bit more bearish on this team than I think most people are. I'm a little bit more down on this team than most people are. And mainly, you talk about the schedule and how easy it is to start, and then I look at the schedule and how horrible it is to close. And so for me, if we believe there will be some progression for Anthony Richardson after he's coming back off of injury, then you're like, let's just then start at week 9. Houston is not going to be a pushover at all. Houston is a tough game there in week 9. You go to week 11, Indy. Now you have a chance for Anthony Richardson to grow a little bit and maybe be a little bit better record. That should maybe be a little bit tougher of an out than people are giving it credit for. Then you close out the season. Seattle, Miami, Jacksonville, Los Angeles, Buffalo, and Miami, all teams that are projected to have winning records this year. In the Seahawks, the Dolphins, the Jags, the Bills, and then the Dolphins again. For me, I look at this and say, if you're not close to this 10 wins coming down the stretch, if you're chasing the 10 wins, I don't know, man. I lean towards an under, especially at plus money. I am of the mindset that we are putting an incredible amount of trust in the fact and just assuming that Aaron Rodgers is going to be Aaron Rodgers. And he very well might be. He might be superhuman. He there's probably a better chance than not. It's probably on the better than a coin flip that he is superhuman and will just come out and look the same. But we have seen a lot of cases of older dudes with major injuries and come back and just not be themselves, just be a shell of themselves. And so with all of that, it leans me towards, with the schedule again that I'm looking at, leans me towards going ahead and taking a plus money price on the under.
What I hope he does is just go full Tom Brady when he was 40 years old in the league and never leave the pocket. Don't even try and scramble and risk the Achilles and try some agility stuff at your age. Literally just sit there in the pocket and operate. So that's my hope. We'll see.
What do we think about him from an MVP perspective? Because so here's my non analytical approach to this. I don't think people like Aaron Rodgers very much, right?
Correct.
And like, this is voted on by human beings. And don't get me wrong, if he throws for 5,000 yards and, a billion touchdowns and all that, like, they're going to have no choice. But if it's Aaron Rodgers and two other dudes, it's going to go to one of the two other dudes. Like, that's just kind of my opinion on all this, which is why I don't think there's any value in betting him really at all for MVP, because he would have to have a superhuman season, in my opinion, to win the MVP. And plus, if you just look historically, there is an analytical approach to this as well, which if you look historically, Aaron Rodgers is one of the most deliberate quarterbacks in NFL history. He runs the play clock down way low. He doesn't run a fast offense really ever unless they're super trailing and all that. And so if you run fewer plays, there's fewer opportunities to put up those counting stats and all that different stuff. And like, that's just kind of a side note to all of this. But for me, it's kind of like the Deshaun Watson thing. They would have to have historic seasons, in my opinion, in order for them to win this award.
I think the defense is too good for him to win the award. I don't think they're going to play a wide open style and want to score a ton of points. Like, I think this is going to be more methodical, and they'll be fine still winning games in the, low to mid 20s. So credit Robert Saleh. Like, with how bad that offense was last year, usually at some point the defense drops off and they no longer are ranked an elite defense. They still finish top 3 by EPA per play allowed and success rate. So I just think this is an elite unit. If you look at PFF's rankings of units going into the season, Jets are literally number 1 in defensive line and secondary. So I think this is the best defense in the league. I think that hurts Aaron Rodgers' candidacy. My question to you is 2-1 to win comeback player of the year. There is a new emphasis from voters to only focus on guys who are coming back from injury versus like the Joe Flaccos of the world. Will they not vote for him because they don't like the guy in that award?
Yeah, if the juice was worth the squeeze there, that would be an award that I would be okay betting with him. But like a 2-1 for me to lock up money
not
for
this early,
a 2-1 for me to lock up money that long. No. Now I think they have a much easier time giving him that than they have giving him the MVP. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's easier to rationalize your dislike for someone and give them a lesser award than it is to give them the MVP, which is saying that you are the most valuable player in all of the NFL. Steven, let's hit real quick just Super Bowl, conference, and division odds here. I like the Dolphins in this division, so I'm not in on the Jets, and so I don't have any interest specifically at the price because I think that they are easily the third best team in this division, in my opinion. But that is up, obviously up for debate. I'm sure you don't think so.
I actually think Buffalo's the third best team in the division going into this year. We'll talk about that more in the Buffalo preview. I am very interested in Miami and their ceiling outcomes potentially for the playoffs. I need to dig a little bit more. I have concerns about Miami in the trenches. I don't know about the Jets' playoff outcomes because of the age at key positions. So my take is, like, I feel really good about my over win total. I feel good about my price on the Jets at 2-1 to win the division just because of the way the schedule sets up for them. But I don't think you're going to lose out on much value with how loaded the AFC is of taking a wait and see approach on potential futures for this team. So there's so many other teams that should be really good. I could see a situation where we're not that much off that 20-1 number, even if they win 11, 12 games, start the postseason and have a better idea of where we are with this team. So I would never bet that right now, just considering the landscape of the conference and the age at key positions for the Jets.
One of the things I will always say is, like, hey, look at the schedule to see how you want to go about betting a team. This is one of the teams where if you want to bet them, you need to bet them early. If you like Aaron Rodgers for MVP, if you like Aaron Rodgers for comeback player of the year, if you like the over on the win total, if you like all of those different things, because after week 1, Tennessee, New England, Denver, Minnesota, in which they very well could win all 4 of those games, and like all prices are going to be shot. They're going to be completely dead. So some teams, as we do these previews, will say, hey, you might want to pump the brakes and bet them like week 4 or something, or bet them like week 5, whatever it might be. Not the case with the Jets, because one, if they screw around and win in week 1, then it's all over for you. And but even past that, if they have a good showing and then they rattle off 4 in a row against kind of bottom feeders in the NFL, then you're going to lose all value on anything that you're putting in on any of those bets. And so be sure, if you do like the Jets and you're bullish on the Jets, you're going to want to get those tickets in before the season starts.
I'll put it in the Discord if I'm going to bet it. I may be looking at an under on Breece Hall rushing yards, which sounds crazy, but you get a more pass-centric offense, or at least more than they had last year. And Breece Hall played all 17 games last year in an offense that was highly motivated to run the ball a lot with bad quarterback play. And he still didn't get to 1,000 yards because they were splitting the backfield work. And he gets a ton of work out of the backfield in the passing game. So anytime there's a season-long prop on a running back and it's in the thousands, I'm going to have to automatically look to the under. And I'll just remind everybody, season-long props in general skew to the under, like 60% unders on these season-long player props going into the season over the past few years.
And see, I mean, like, for what it's worth, too, like, I don't, it may just be practice squad depth or whatever it might be. Like, they took running backs in the 4th and the 5th round in the draft. So, like, they took dudes in the 4th and the 5th. And
you do want to keep him healthy if they make the playoffs.
Yeah. So there could be limiting stuff going on there with that as well. On a week-to-week basis, final thoughts here on the Jets. On a week-to-week basis, Stephen, for me, I think this is going to be a great team in small spreads. So, like, if you like them as small favorites, small dogs, like all this, like, I think it's going to be good. That defense is so good that they are just not going to – they're just not going to give up too many points. Like, it's just not going to happen. Like, there's a very, very small chance of this team ever really getting blown out or whatever. But I don't necessarily think I like them as big favorites for the same reason you mentioned, Stephen, is like – they might just shut it down, right? I mean, like their defense is so good that they might go into super conservative mode late in games and stuff. And like, that's just a heartbreaking way to lose whenever your team is up 10 and they just decide to take their foot completely off the gas and whatever. So as these opportunities like come out throughout the course of the season, I don't know if I like them as big favorites, but certainly small favorites, small dogs, and stuff like that. And I can't imagine them ever being a big dog, but certainly as a big dog favorite, the Jets would be something to look at as well.
I'll also be looking for any total that starts with the number 4 and maybe considering unders in these games week to week for all those reasons defensively.
Guys, we will do this for each and every team across the NFL, and the way that you can make sure you don't miss one is to hit that subscribe button down below. Everything we do absolutely free over at TheLines.com. We will continue the discussion in the Discord. That's absolutely free. You can find that in the upper right-hand corner as well. And if you want to bet anything that we're talking about here, Lines.com, there's an odds tab. You can make sure you're getting the best odds. Don't settle for whatever book that you just used on the reg. Don't do that. Make sure that you're getting the best value, especially if you're going to be locking up money for 6 months at the end, make sure you're getting the best payout that you can possibly get on that for sure. And so you can do that also by your state over at thelines.com as well. For Stephen, I am Matt. Good luck on all your New York Jet bets.